You might find that humanity tends to theorize most aggressively about the very subjects it grasps the least. Even during his earliest years, Carl Jung encountered bizarre, apparently inexplicable occurrences that left him terrified for his own sanity, prompting a lifelong journey to decode their hidden significance. He vividly recalled witnessing undulating yellow waters, floating debris, and the demise of untold thousands. A terrifying premonition that struck again with even greater ferocity a fortnight later, accompanied by an internal voice insisting on its absolute, undeniable reality and impending manifestation. These intense premonitions materialized right on the eve of the First World War's eruption. Once the global conflict commenced, the psychiatrist felt suddenly certain that he was not falling victim to schizophrenia, but was rather tuning into profound signals emanating from the deep subsoil of the collective unconscious. He found himself wrestling with a crucial mystery. How could such deeply meaningful occurrences manifest without any clear chain of cause and effect? And what did this reveal concerning the fundamental nature of the physical cosmos? You can clearly see how these startling correlations utterly defied the conventional bounds of scientific rationality. During his younger days, the future psychoanalyst encountered more than just extraordinary visions. He also witnessed physical incidents that defied all logical interpretation. While reviewing his academic materials during a summer break, an explosive noise resembling gunfire shattered the quiet, leading him to discover a remarkably sturdy table violently fractured right through its middle. A mere 14 days after that jarring event, a similar disturbance echoed through the house, revealing a recently utilized bread knife lying mysteriously shattered into numerous fragments inside a closed cabinet. Upon completing his formal medical education and stepping into the role of a practicing psychiatrist, his fascination with the unseen only intensified. Driven largely by his own inexplicable encounters, he began actively participating in spiritualistic gatherings aimed at contacting the deceased, diving deeply into parapsychology and the esoteric arts. Ultimately, this unconventional passion served as the foundation for his 1902 doctoral thesis, formally titled On the Psychology and Pathology of So-Called Occult Phenomena, a Psychiatric Study. During a memorable exchange regarding the paranormal, Jung found himself clashing with Sigmund Freud. Anchored firmly in materialistic views, Freud dismissed the majority of his younger colleagues' inquiries as sheer absurdity. Suddenly, Jung was overcome by an eerie physical symptom, feeling as though his midsection had transformed into glowing molten iron. In that exact instant, an explosive crack erupted from a nearby bookshelf with such force that it startled both men to their feet, terrified that the heavy furniture was about to crash down upon them. Seizing the moment, Jung proclaimed the startling noise to be a perfect illustration of a catalytic exteriorization phenomenon. When Freud scoffed at the idea as absolute nonsense, the younger doctor confidently stood his ground, prophesying that an identical crash would echo through the room momentarily to validate his bold claim. Almost immediately, a second violent boom resonated from the woodwork. Reflecting on the bizarre incident, Jung confessed that he had no idea where his absolute conviction originated, noting only that Freud gazed at him in stunned silence, his thoughts and expression completely unreadable. Fast forward to 1928, while the psychoanalyst was illustrating the intricate designs within his famous Red Book, he received a transformative package from the esteemed sinologist Richard Wilhelm. It was a copy of The Secret of the Golden Flower, a venerable Taoist alchemical treatise detailing esoteric Chinese meditation techniques aimed at actualizing complete inner unity. Utterly captivated by the uncanny resemblance between the Eastern diagrams and his own ongoing artwork, he consumed the text ravenously, later inscribing a note beneath his drawing that immortalized the miraculous coincidence of receiving a millennium-old manuscript concerning the Yellow Castle just as he was painting a shimmering, impregnable fortress. This serendipitous encounter marked a profound pivot in his intellectual journey, steering his subsequent publications toward exploring the deep psychological underpinnings of alchemy. He enthusiastically credited Wilhelm with igniting a creative flame that forever altered his trajectory, confessing a debt of gratitude so immense that it dwarfed the influence of any other individual in his life. He found himself especially mesmerized by an illustration depicting an ascetic with numerous human forms sprouting sequentially from his crown. To his mind, this imagery perfectly captured an individual on the threshold of shedding their fragmented egos to transition into a genuinely unified, objective realization of the self. It was during a 1930 eulogy for Wilhelm, the scholar renowned for translating the I Ching, or Book of Changes, that Jung first introduced the public to his freshly minted concept of synchronicity. He described it as a mysterious universal mechanism causing disparate events to strangely align and mirror one another, despite lacking any logical connection from our limited perspective. He drew direct parallels between this phenomenon and the Eastern philosophy of the Tao, which harmonizes the opposing forces of yin and yang into a unified existence bridging humanity and the universe. You can see how this perfectly mirrors the ancient alchemical maxim declaring, "As above, so below," illustrating the fundamental equivalence of external material reality and the internal psyche. Much like the Taoist sage striving to navigate reality without succumbing to polarizing extremes, the ultimate objective of Jungian psychology is achieving a delicate equilibrium between conscious awareness and hidden impulses, effectively calibrating the ego to align with the central self. Synchronicity acts as a crucial catalyst in this process, guiding the convoluted, spiraling journey of individuation, where personal evolution circles a fixed core rather than following a straightforward path. This perpetual psychological orbit is elegantly embodied by the mandala, a pattern that the psychiatrist believed every individual must uncover to truly mature. In order to anchor this inward rotation, the design invariably features a central emblem, perhaps a radiant sun, an impenetrable fortress, or a golden flower. Ultimately, it serves as a vivid visual reflection of the divine blueprint and the ultimate manifestation of the completed self. Ultimately, this culminates in the alchemical operation known as Mysterium Conjunctionis, a concept that fittingly serves as the title of Carl Jung's final major publication. Within this framework, the disparate and contradictory forces of existence merge into a sacred union, precipitating an elevated state of lucid awareness alongside a profound recognition of universal interconnectedness. Jung observed that figures and concepts such as Atman, Tao, and Christ function as distinct cultural representations of this ultimate completeness, effectively linking our innermost identity with the vital force that animates the entire universe. In this profound state of integration, your personal agency dissolves into a broader existence. Rather than directing your own path, the cosmos breathes its life through you. The ancient divination system of the I Ching was instrumental in shaping Jung's theories regarding meaningful coincidences. By integrating this oracle into his psychotherapeutic practice, he gathered numerous instances of profoundly relevant guidance and extraordinary glimpses into the human mind. To illustrate, he recounted an episode involving a client battling a mother complex who harbored anxieties about his future bride's potentially controlling nature. Upon consulting the I Ching, Jung drew hexagram 44, known as coming to meet, which explicitly warned against marrying a woman of such formidable power. Through these empirical observations, Jung established that profound, substantive links exist between our internal psychological landscapes and the external material reality. Reflecting on these methods, he observed that his fascination with this divinatory tool as a means of probing the unconscious mind had spanned over 3 decades, driven by its exceptional relevance. He elaborated that this practice was deeply tied to a fascinating dynamic he named synchronicity, a paradigm that stands in stark contrast to traditional cause and effect thinking. He argued that while causality operates merely as a statistical framework for understanding the sequential progression of occurrences, synchronicity interprets the simultaneous alignment of events in both space and time as carrying a profound significance that far exceeds random probability. Typically, we rely on causality to articulate how one sequential occurrence triggers the next, much like how the physical impact of a cue sends a billiard ball rolling across a table. Conversely, synchronicity represents a profound alignment between internal psychological states and external circumstances, where no physical cause and effect relationship can be identified. The crucial distinguishing factor is the profound significance of the event, which manifests when an internal experience, such as a vivid dream, a sudden premonition, or a specific mood, finds a direct parallel in your surrounding environment, making the mental image a tangible reality. In these moments, your internal landscape and the physical universe harmonize, infusing your existence with deep resonance and purpose. Etymologically, the term synchronicity is built from the Greek prefix syn, denoting togetherness, and chronos, representing time, literally translating to occurrences that unfold simultaneously. While the standard definition of a coincidence merely points to multiple incidents taking place concurrently, synchronicity elevates this concept by demanding a profound thematic connection between the intersecting events. This enigmatic phenomenon captivated Jung's intellectual curiosity for many years, particularly during his extensive research into the collective unconscious. Throughout those studies, he repeatedly encountered intersecting circumstances that carried such deep resonance that they completely shattered any conventional expectations of statistical likelihood. It is inherently difficult for the human mind to grasp the concept of occurrences that are linked without a direct physical trigger, yet our inability to comprehend them does not negate their reality. This uncharted territory was further explored when the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Wolfgang Pauli entered therapy with Carl Jung, bringing with him a rich tapestry of intricate dream material. Discovering a renowned quantum physicist possessing such a vivid and complex subconscious life was an exceptional stroke of fortune for the psychoanalyst. Long after their clinical relationship concluded, the two visionaries maintained a vigorous intellectual exchange, a fascinating dialogue now preserved for posterity in the publication Atom and Archetype, which compiles their extensive correspondence. Through their collaborative intellectual journey, the duo eventually conceptualized synchronicity as an independent organizing principle that operates entirely outside the boundaries of conventional space, time, and deterministic physics. Refining these revolutionary and highly debated concepts required almost 2 decades of rigorous thought before they felt prepared to present them to the public. Their combined insights culminated in a 1952 co-authored release titled The Interpretation of Nature and the Psyche, marking a significant milestone in esoteric science. Subsequently, Jung's specific contribution to this volume, titled Synchronicity, an acausal connecting principle, was independently reissued as a key component of Volume 8 within his comprehensive collected works. Documenting his clinical observations, he noted that his extensive practice as a psychiatrist consistently brought him face to face with these inexplicable occurrences, leaving him thoroughly convinced of their profound psychological value to the individuals experiencing them. He pointed out that individuals typically kept these profound intersections hidden away, paralyzed by the anxiety that sharing them would invite harsh and unthinking mockery from their peers. Ultimately, he expressed profound astonishment at the sheer volume of individuals who had navigated such extraordinary events, as well as the intense vigilance with which they shielded these deeply personal mysteries from public scrutiny. Lacking the specialized resources required to empirically test his theories in a laboratory setting, Jung looked elsewhere for validation. He drew substantial support from the extrasensory perception trials conducted by J.B. Rhine, the pioneering figure who established parapsychology as a legitimate psychological discipline. These rigorous tests yielded compelling data pointing to non-deterministic groupings of events, showcasing instances of simultaneous occurrence so staggeringly unlikely that their probability required expression through mind-boggling astronomical digits. Such phenomenal outcomes clearly demonstrate forces at work that stretch far beyond the traditional boundaries of random variation and standard statistical chance. To highlight this, consider a trial utilizing 25 cards bearing 5 distinct symbols, where a participant, isolated from the researcher by a visual barrier, attempted to identify the symbols 800 times. One extraordinary participant consistently doubled the expected success rate, averaging 10 correct guesses per run, and remarkably managed to identify the entire sequence of 25 perfectly on one occasion, a feat carrying a mathematical likelihood of approximately 1 in 298 quadrillion. Rather than attempting to map out a definitive, exhaustive mechanism for these perplexing anomalies, Jung aimed to illuminate a shadowy domain possessing immense philosophical gravity. His motivation extended far past mere empirical curiosity. His primary ambition was to plunge into the profound depths of the human spirit. To rationalize these inexplicable alignments, Jung leaned heavily on his theory of the archetype, defining these as foundational templates of instinctual conduct that manage and structure the chaotic processes of the hidden mind. These archetypes form the fundamental architecture of the collective unconscious, a shared psychological substratum that remains consistent across all human beings and harbors the symbolic blueprints of existence itself. Serving as the ultimate schematic for living, these deep-seated structures orchestrate our internal psychological elements, while simultaneously projecting profoundly significant configurations into the tangible, external universe. Unlike those psychological occurrences you can readily observe, these fundamental forces remain entirely beyond direct perception or symbolic rendering. Because of this inherently ungraspable quality, Carl Jung designated this realm as psychoid, essentially meaning soul-like, which illustrates the profound connection linking your individual mind to the material universe existing outside your physical form. Here, you encounter a phenomenon completely detached from mere neurological processes, manifesting instead through profoundly significant arrangements within your own existence. Such purposeful intersections of events are built upon an archetypal framework, making synchronicity the most profound stratum of reality, where the mental and the material merge so completely they cannot be told apart. This seamless, unified aspect of every human experience mirrors the ancient alchemical concept known as the Unus Mundus, or the One World. As Jung himself observed, assuming mandala imagery serves as the psychological counterpart to the Unus Mundus, we must consider synchronicity to be its parapsychological equivalent. Your psychological existence essentially functions as a direct manifestation of the natural world, suggesting the presence of a profound knowing that precedes conscious thought itself. We generally understand synchronistic occurrences as surging upward whenever this deep, foundational stratum of existence becomes active. It appears that an inherent, entirely acausal awareness exists regarding circumstances that are, rationally speaking, completely impossible to know in the moment. When engaging in therapeutic practices, viewing individuals as fundamentally isolated entities severely restricts the healing process. Rather, the dynamic space that binds and envelops both individuals serves as the true catalyst for transformation. The silent, subterranean exchanges tethering both partners together originate from the psychoid domain, effectively bypassing the narrow viewpoint that a therapist and their client operate within isolated, sealed-off minds. Synchronistic moments frequently precipitate precisely within the intensified emotional atmosphere cultivated by this shared energetic space, Ultimately, your mental existence inhabits a fundamentally interconnected, singular dimension, while the absolute realization of the self culminates in the pleroma, a state wherein the past, the present, and the future unfold concurrently. This embodies the mesmerizing essence of synchronicity, the revelation that every future occurrence has essentially already happened. To illustrate this, Jung recounts an intriguing anecdote concerning the 19th century French poet Émile Deschamps, who once received a slice of plum pudding from an individual known as Monsieur de Forchibou. A full decade passed before the writer spotted a similar dessert at an eatery in Paris, prompting him to request a portion for himself. Astonishingly, the waiter informed him that the entire dish had already been reserved by none other than de Forchibou. Decades later, Deschamps found himself at a gathering where plum pudding was being served as an exceptional delicacy, leading him to casually joke that the only element missing from the occasion was his old acquaintance. At that exact second, the entrance swung wide to reveal an incredibly frail, bewildered gentleman stumbling into the room. It was de Forchibou, who had inadvertently arrived at the incorrect residence and blundered into the gathering completely by accident. Jung meticulously documented another fascinating sequence that strongly resembled a synchronistic episode, which began on the 1st of April, 1949, when he recorded details about a historic carving depicting a mythological being that was half man and half fish. This aquatic theme persisted at his midday meal, which consisted of seafood, followed by a companion bringing up the seasonal tradition of playing an April fish prank. As the afternoon unfolded, a former client, whom the psychoanalyst had not encountered in months, arrived to display several striking paintings of marine life, while the evening brought forth a piece of needlework decorated with oceanic leviathans and various fishes. The subsequent dawn ushered in yet another past client, visiting for the first time in an entire decade, who eagerly described a vivid dream from the previous night involving a massive aquatic creature. Several months after this extraordinary cascade, right after chronicling this sequence for a major publication, Jung strolled down to the lakeside near his home, discovering a fish, roughly 12 inches long, abandoned on the retaining wall. Since the area was completely deserted, the creature's sudden appearance remained an absolute mystery. Whenever such remarkable parallel occurrences accumulate so densely, you naturally find yourself astonished by the sheer unlikelihood of the pattern. Yet, Jung himself remained skeptical about classifying this specific fish sequence as genuine synchronicity, primarily because these external happenings lacked a profound intersection with his own internal psychological state, leading him to suspect it was merely an extraordinarily rare statistical clustering of 6 random events, followed by a 7th anomaly months later. The renowned psychiatrist also issued strong warnings regarding the pathological misinterpretation of such phenomena, noting that individuals can easily lose their grounding and begin projecting profound significance onto every mundane occurrence. He specifically addressed this danger concerning schizophrenic patients, who frequently perceive unrelated environmental shifts as messages exclusively directed at themselves. In personal correspondence, Jung observed that while individuals battling schizophrenia often mistake genuine synchronistic occurrences for delusional fantasies, the heavy presence of archetypal material in their condition guarantees that these meaningful coincidences happen just as frequently as they do for the general population. The crucial difference lies in the morbidly restrictive nature of the patient's interpretation, which typically fixates on the supposed motives of those around them or inflates their own personal importance. Consequently, therapeutic efforts must focus on deciphering the underlying intentions of the unconscious mind to properly recalibrate the individual's perspective, firmly establishing the synchronistic effect as a perfectly natural human experience rather than a symptom of psychosis. During a specific workshop focused on the interpretation of nocturnal visions, Jung and his colleagues engaged in a deep dialogue regarding the mythological bull god motif, attempting to decode a particular patient's dream. Completely oblivious to the scholarly debate occurring among the analysts, that exact same patient devoted several consecutive days to painting a magnificent bull, crowning the beast with a solar disk resting between its horns. In another compelling account, the psychoanalyst described taking a stroll through a forest alongside a female client, who began recounting the very first dream that had ever left a permanent mark on her memory. She described witnessing a ghostly fox descending the staircase of her childhood residence, and at that precise moment, an actual fox emerged from the foliage less than 40 yards away. This wild creature proceeded to calmly escort them along the trail for several minutes, conducting itself as though it were an active participant in their therapeutic exchange. Ultimately, this animal represented a profound instinctive brilliance, serving as a living symbol, urging the woman to discard her lingering doubts and overcome her cognitive barriers by placing absolute faith in her natural intuition. Carl Jung offers a fascinating illustration that perfectly captures the essence of synchronicity, recounting the experience of a university companion whose father pledged a Spanish vacation as a reward for successfully conquering his final academic assessments. Following this promise, the young man experienced a vivid nocturnal vision where he found himself navigating the avenues of a Spanish metropolis. The pathway opened up into a plaza, anchored by a magnificent Gothic cathedral, prompting him to pivot rightward down an adjacent alleyway, where he encountered a refined carriage pulled by a pair of cream-colored horses before abruptly awakening. While sharing drinks with peers, the student relayed this extraordinary nocturnal narrative, which soon materialized into reality. Upon conquering his tests and embarking on his promised Iberian journey, he found himself strolling through an urban landscape that flawlessly mirrored his sleeping mind's creation. Discovering the exact plaza and majestic church from his vision, he suppressed his urge to approach the structure directly, choosing instead to replicate his dream's right-hand turn to test the boundaries of his precognition. Scarcely had he rounded the bend when the precise vehicle drawn by twin cream-colored steeds materialized before his waking eyes, an event the psychoanalyst categorized as a phenomenon where dream-based foresight manifests in waking life, rendering mere chance mathematically absurd since the details were anticipated beforehand. In another profound testament to these phenomena, the doctor documented the tragic trajectory of a previously treated melancholic client whose overbearing spouse drove him back into profound psychological despair. Despite an urgent invitation for therapeutic intervention, the suffering man remained silent under his partner's restrictive influence. Simultaneously, following an evening speaking engagement, the exhausted analyst retired to his lodging, only to be violently jolted from slumber around 2 o'clock in the morning by the palpable sensation of an intruder rushing through a swiftly opened door. Bathing the space in sudden illumination revealed absolute emptiness, and a quick inspection of the hallway yielded nothing but a deathly, undisturbed silence. Convinced of a spectral presence, Jung painstakingly retraced his sensory experiences, realizing that a blunt, aching trauma mimicking a physical blow originating at his brow and exiting the rear of his cranium had actually shattered his rest. The subsequent morning delivered a devastating telegraphic message, confirming that his troubled patient had ended his own life via a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Subsequent revelations confirmed that the projectile had ultimately lodged perfectly against the posterior interior of the victim's cranium, mirroring the doctor's phantom agony. This chilling intersection of minds perfectly exemplifies a synchronistic event tethered to the grim archetype of mortality, demonstrating how the subconscious effortlessly bypasses the constraints of physical space and linear time to grasp distant truths. Arguably the most celebrated illustration of this concept features the scarab, a potent Egyptian emblem embodying the primal archetype of profound metamorphosis and resurrection. The analyst was struggling to penetrate the defenses of an exceptionally pragmatic female client, whose rigid intellectualism completely walled off any acceptance of subconscious realities. During a pivotal session, She recounted a striking nocturnal vision wherein she received a gilded representation of this ancient insect. As she narrated this potent imagery, the doctor, seated facing away from the glass panes, was startled by a subtle, rhythmic rapping emanating from the exterior environment. Investigating the disturbance, he discovered an airborne creature desperately throwing itself against the glass, which he promptly intercepted as he opened the sash. This unexpected visitor proved to be the common rose chafer, biologically known as Setonia aurata, the closest geographical approximation to the gilded Egyptian beetle, inexplicably driven to invade a shadowed interior against all its natural instincts. Presenting the captive insect to the stunned woman with the declaration that her artifact had arrived, Jung shattered the impenetrable frost of her rational skepticism. This unprecedented intersection of waking reality and nocturnal symbolism acted as a catalyst for profound personal metamorphosis, effectively dismantling her former identity and facilitating the emergence of a thoroughly revitalized psyche. These specific narratives merely scratch the surface of a vast repository of profound coincidences, documented extensively by psychological practitioners throughout history. Such remarkably timed occurrences typically emerge during the most critical transitions of personal psychological development, yet they frequently remain undetected by those unaccustomed to deciphering the profound symbolic language of their internal landscapes. You are strongly encouraged to remain vigilant for seemingly arbitrary occurrences in your own journey, allowing their potential significance to percolate within your consciousness over time. Engaging with these synchronous moments provides a powerful mechanism for illuminating the darkest, most profoundly hidden territories of your fundamental nature. In the twilight of his life, in 1961, the pioneering thinker completed his final manuscript, a chapter from Man and His Symbols, called Approaching the Unconscious, spurred by a visionary prompting to democratize his complex theories. Merely 3 days prior to his passing, he experienced a sequence of profound final visions, the ultimate of which featured him standing on an elevated peak beside a sun-drenched megalith, bearing an engraved tribute to his achieved psychological unity and complete integration. A parallel sleeping vision revealed a geometrical plaza bursting with arboreal life, whose subterranean anchors were inextricably woven with gleaming gold, representing the ultimate alchemical triumph of perfect resolution. Through these magnificent, final tapestries of the mind, the collective unconscious effectively offered a poignant benediction, affirming that his earthly labors were entirely fulfilled, and his spirit was finally liberated to transition onward. Your work is successfully completed, and its fruits will only multiply. Merely hours prior to Jung's passing, his dear friend Lorenz van der Post, while journeying by sea from Africa back to Europe, envisioned the psychologist bidding him a final farewell in a dream. The physical world seemingly validated this spiritual departure shortly thereafter. A violent storm rolled through the area, unleashing a lightning bolt that completely shattered a beloved tree situated in the garden where the great thinker often relaxed. A few years following these events, van der Post returned to the Jung residence in Zurich to shoot footage for a documentary project. At the precise instant he turned toward the lens to share the story of his friend's demise and detailed the catastrophic strike on that favored tree, a second bolt of lightning violently grounded itself in the exact same yard. These incredible alignments prove that synchronicity functions as a continuous, tangible phenomenon, perpetually surrounding you the moment you actively choose to perceive it.